Hello, welcome to a new edition of the Right Wing Populist Podcast. I am the Right Wing Populist. So today I want to talk about the steps President Trump should take to save MAGA, save the 26 midterms, and to ultimately save the 28 presidential election. Also, I want to talk about the fact that it looks like we may be having a breakthrough in the Russia-Ukraine war. But before we get into that all, I want you to subscribe, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever the hell you get your podcasts. I don't care. Just subscribe. Also, if you are going to subscribe on YouTube, also like and comment. Helps with the algorithm. I would really freaking appreciate it. So yes, I want to talk about the steps Trump can take to save MAGA. For those who either are living under a rock, who don't follow politics, or aren't on the right, there's been a big civil war taking place in MAGA for really ever since the summer of 2025. Ever since there was this pressure campaign by people in the Israel First crowd to bomb Iran. People like Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, the faggot, Mark Levin. These people, all these Israel First people who love Israel more than they love their wives or husbands in Dave Rubin's case. Shout out to Dave Rubin. Let's not make fun of gay. We don't make fun of gay people, folks, on this podcast. We're above that. Is Dave Rubin a faggot? Yes, there's nothing wrong with that. He has 2 kids. I believe they're both sons. By the way, what is with gay couples only adopting or having young boys? What's up with that? Even with surrogate mothers, it's like, if they find out the baby's female, they'll tell the surrogate mother to get an abortion. It's like crazy. Why do gay men only want to have boys for I don't know. Let's not even get into that. Let's totally off topic. I'm getting off topic. Let's focus. I gotta focus. So ever since the and not only the Iran strikes, but the Epstein file debacle, Trump's approval rating has totally crashed and burned. Young people are leaving MAGA in droves. And you have a civil war between, original MAGA, people like Tucker Carlson, and quote-unquote new MAGA, or what I would call really the Israel Firsters, Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, Josh Hammer, the Ben Shapiro wannabe, those folks. And the Israel First crowd, they want Trump. They've been pushing Trump in a neocon Republican establishment direction. Okay, folks? Partly because that benefits Israel. Again, neocon foreign policy has always been intertwined with pro-Israel foreign policy. Frankly, Israel is often used as a justification for the neocon policy. Whether it's a pretext or not, it often is the justification. We have to help our amazing friends in Israel. By the way, I was listening, or I saw a clip of Roseanne Barr's podcast, the failed old female comedian. I only say failed because she said something that really annoyed me. She was talking on her podcast. Everyone has to have a podcast. A little hypocritical for me to say, I guess, but everyone these days has to have a podcast. But Roseanne Barr was talking to, I guess, her co-host or someone. Never heard of this guy before. And they were saying that if the U.S. abandons Israel, it'll be worse for the U.S. than it would be for Israel. That Israel would be fine, but we would be the ones negatively affected if we cut off the relationship. It's like, what? I know, again, I'm getting off topic, but like, how would it benefit Israel but not benefit us if how would Israel not be less negatively impacted by us cutting off their relationship? They are way more reliant on us than we are on them. We're not really relying on Israel at all, except for maybe some intelligence sharing. That's often not even accurate. It's worthless. Israel relies on us for everything. We give them billions of dollars. They wouldn't have been able to attack Iran without knowing that we were going to support them. Israel would have nothing without the United States. They're a tiny country with no great natural resources. So I'm just listening to this podcast, and they're talking about how, without Israel, the United States would suffer, but Israel would be great. It's like, no, it's the opposite. We would be the ones who would be fine, and Israel would be the ones to suffer. I mean, that's just... Anyway, the Israel First people, it's just crazy, especially boomers. Like Roseanne Barr is a boomer. These boomers who think that Israel is so important to the United States, it's like, why? They never give a justification. But again, I'm getting off topic. Let's refocus. So, as we saw in, I think 2 weeks ago, in the races in Virginia, New Jersey, and several other states, if we're being honest, Republicans got wiped out. It was bad. It was a mini blue wave that happened in the off-year election. That's a really bad sign. That's usually a sign that the party that wins those off-year elections, they tend to do well in the midterms. That's typically what happens. And look, the fact that Trump's approval rating has shifted negative and the fact that there seems to be public support shifting towards Democrats, that's somewhat normal. I've studied political science at university. There's a well-established or well-known phenomenon, basically called the thermostat public opinion, which basically means if you have a Democrat in office, public opinion tends to shift to the right. But then if you have a Republican in office, public opinion tends to shift back to the left. And that's why we've been having, parties go back and forth. We haven't had, a party serve 3 straight presidential terms since Reagan Bush. And that's because public opinion keeps shifting back and forth. I mean, we haven't had a president serve 2 consecutive terms since Obama, because obviously Trump's 2 terms are non-consecutive. So the fact that public opinion looks like it's shifting against Trump shouldn't be surprising, but the shift, the swing that we saw in these past elections was way more than just sort of a normal shift. It shows that the public is not happy with how the Trump administration has been governing so far. And the question is why, and I've talked about this a bit on the podcast, but people are still not happy about inflation. Shit costs too much. They think Trump's too focused on, again, foreign policy. That's why I bring up the Iran stuff. They think that Trump's more focused on doing the bidding of Israel than doing the bidding of the voters who got him into the White House again. The Epstein stuff has been a total debacle. People think that Trump's hiding something, whether it's protecting himself or protecting his friends. They think Trump's hiding something. So that's been a disaster. Pam Bondi should be fired, but I'm going to get into the solutions. That's going to be one of them. Spoiler alert. The public is not happy with the Trump administration. There's no question about it. So let's get into what can Trump do about this? How can he potentially salvage the 26 midterms? And how can he put J.D. Vance in a good position to be his successor in 28, to win the presidency in 28? Not just the Republican primary, but the actual presidency in 28. So number one, you have to focus on inflation. You have to focus on the economy. Right now, prices are too high still. And the number one thing I would do is any tariffs that are not directly related to revitalizing industrial policy, that aren't related to bringing back jobs, not 100% related to getting us less dependent on China, get rid of those tariffs. Any tariffs that are being used as basically de facto sanctions, as a way to punish countries that, let's say, are buying Russian oil like India, get rid of them. No one in the United States wants to pay higher prices because you want to punish other countries because the United States disagrees with how they're conducting themselves in the international sphere. If the tariffs are meant to help bring back jobs, like I say, revitalize industrial policy, then fine. Okay. People are going to be willing to pay maybe slightly higher prices if it means jobs are coming back. But if we're going to be paying higher prices because we want to, again, punish countries like India because they have the audacity to buy Russian oil, then no. So any tariffs that are not directly related to manufacturing jobs, industrial policy, get rid of those tariffs. And frankly, the Supreme Court may do that for Trump based off the oral argument. Sort of 50-50, we'll see what happens there. But any tariffs that are not directly related to bringing back jobs and having us be less reliant on China, get rid of those tariffs. They're unnecessary, and they're just causing people to look at the administration as if they're not taking the issue of pricing seriously. So get rid of those tariffs. Number 2, you have to focus on jobs. The job market is very weak right now. If you look at the sentiment of people looking for jobs, I think, or just consumer sentiment in general, the outlook is very bad. Last I saw, you have more people looking for work than there are jobs currently available. Payrolls have been cut. Jobs have been lost the last month. The job market is not good. One of the ways I think the Trump administration should address it is, number one, acknowledge it. Don't be going around saying, like Trump is, that we're living in the golden era. That's just not true, and it pisses voters off. The way to address it is you got to do with some of the deregulation that Trump did in his first term. And I know people deregulation, you just want to create a lot of people think of deregulation, they think of just doing things that benefit big business and like the big bad banks. It's like, no, actually, deregulation is good for most people. It's really good for small businesses to have less regulation. It's why businesses do better in states like Texas and Florida than they do in California. It's because those states have much less burdensome regulation. And in Trump's first term, he slashed a ton of regulations. And it's why his economy was so good during his first term. I mean, people forget that we had real wage growth in Trump's first administration for the first time in years. Okay, Obama never had real wage growth. Bush didn't. Clinton did for a little bit, although it stopped toward the end of his second term. We had real wage growth during Trump's first term, and jobs were starting to come back. It's why voters wanted him back in the White House after the 4 years of the catastrophe that was brain dead, retarded Joe Biden. It's because people remembered how good Trump's economy was during his first term. And one of the reasons Trump's economy was so good is he did a great job of getting rid of unnecessary regulations. Well, so far in Trump's second term, he hasn't been doing that as much. He hasn't been cutting as many regulations. There are many regulations that he can cut. Cutting regulations helps small businesses, which is still a vital part of the economy. And again, I know some people on the populist side and certainly on the left side think of deregulation as just a handout to big businesses, but that's just not really true. Small businesses are much more negatively impacted by regulations than big businesses because big businesses have the bandwidth, they have the money, they have the lawyers to deal with regulations in a way that small businesses don't. In fact, sometimes you'll see big corporations actually supporting certain regulations because they know they're going to be fine, but it'll hurt their smaller competitors. So the Trump administration needs to start deregulating like crazy. That will help the economy, and it will help the job market because if these businesses start doing well, they're going to want to hire more people. So that's the second thing. You got to start focusing on jobs and stop saying we're living in the golden era, Trump. For the love of God. Stop saying it. You got to feel their pain a little bit. I mean, remember, during Reagan's first term, the economy had a mini recession. And Reagan, to his credit, wasn't going around gaslighting people saying that everything was great. Reagan was acknowledging their pain, but was saying that, there's going to be some short-term pain, but in the long term, the economy is going to be very good with the changes I'm implementing by cutting taxes and also deregulating. And Reagan was right. By 1984, the economy was booming, and he won in the greatest electoral college landslide ever. I think it was. Yeah, the greatest electoral. Nixon has the biggest popular vote victory ever, but Reagan has the biggest electoral college victory ever. We have this ridiculous system. There's two ways to look at it, but Reagan has the biggest electoral college landslide ever, bigger than Nixon's. But Reagan was very good about making sure that people understood that he felt their pain. Well, Trump has not been doing such a good job of that. Again, Trump's going around saying, oh, everything's great. Everything's fantastic. And it's like, yeah, Donald, I know you're thinking they're the greatest person to ever exist on the planet, besides Jesus maybe, and even then he probably thinks he's better than Jesus, if we're being honest. But just because you're president again doesn't mean everything's great. Not everything is great. Okay. Young people particularly feel like they have no future. They're never going to be able to afford a home. Even people who are graduating with 4-year degrees, they can't find good work. The economy is very fragile. And frankly, the only thing Trump has going for him in the economy is the stock market. And that's only being propped up by the AI bubble. Once that bubble pops, then everything's going to be looking pretty shaky for the economy. And then what's Trump going to say then when the stock market goes down the tubes? So not only does Trump have to implement policies regarding inflation, regulation cuts, he has to start messaging better. He has to start trying to, and I know Trump's not great at this because Trump never likes to act sort of emotionally vulnerable or available, but he has to at least attempt to seem like he's trying to feel and understand people's economic pain. And that will go a long way. The other thing the administration needs to do is when it comes to foreign policy, to the extent they should be focused on foreign policy, It should be ending conflict, not starting new ones. Okay. That means no invasion of Venezuela. If we're able to pressure Maduro, but not actually put troops on the ground, okay, fine. That's still a form of regime change, but if we're not actually putting people on the ground, okay. That's that. I prefer they not do that, but Maduro is a bad guy. He's not the legitimate government of Venezuela because he lost that election but stayed in power, at least according to most of the international organizations. I have no reason to doubt it, so I would assume he's the illegitimate president. So him leaving would be fine, but we shouldn't be putting troops on the ground. I don't even really care that we're knocking down all these drug belts. I don't even care if it's legal or not. I don't really have a problem with it. But if this whole thing is just to do regime change and have troops on the ground and everything, that would be a disaster. It'd be another Libya. So if Maduro willingly steps down, quote unquote, fine. But it cannot be us being directly involved in Maduro stepping down. We can put pressure on him. And if that's the purpose of having, all these ships on the coast, including I forget what you call it specifically, but there's let's put it this way: we have a much bigger presence off the coast of Venezuela than if we were really just trying to take out drug boats. Okay, it's not. It's way out of whack. Okay, it just is. So clearly we have more intentions. And by the way, this relates to another point. Get rid of Marco Rubio. He's a neocon midget who sucks. Okay, I've done rants on Marco Rubio before. I'm not going to do it now. But maybe a little bit. Marco Rubio, he's terrible. He's got big ears. He's tiny. He sweats a lot. He's Little Marco, as Trump called him. Little Marco. Little. Liddl. Little Marco, as Trump would say back in 2016. This guy sucks. He's a neocon. Him, like a lot of people from the South American right, they want Maduro out because they think it'll help them get regime change in Cuba, which Marco Rubio would love to happen. And you could understand why, given his background. But he's upset. He's been boxed out of Israel, Gaza. He's been boxed out of Russia, Ukraine, as we'll talk about in a minute. So he has nothing to do except try to play war games in South America. Okay. So he's been trying to put pressure on Trump, and the whole military-industrial complex has been trying to put pressure on Trump to do regime change. And so far, to Trump's credit, he has been resistant. The way they've been trying to convince Trump is by trying to make this all about drugs. Now, again, they're trying to say this is about fentanyl. There's not a lot of evidence that the vast majority of fentanyl that comes into the United States comes from Venezuela. It comes from Mexico. Frankly, produced by China. Nothing to do with Venezuela, as far as I can tell from what I've read and everything. So, this whole drug thing is a pretext. And again, to Trump's credit, so far, he has been more or less resistant. But it's very hard to resist the military-industrial complex if they're really committed to something. Trump had some success in doing it during his first term, which is why he was the first president in decades not to start a new war. But it's been unclear in his second term how committed he really is to standing up to them. This will be a good test. But get rid of Marco Rubio. Whenever he's involved, peace talks fall apart. The only reason we got a ceasefire in Israel and Gaza is because Witkoff took control of that negotiation. Rubio was set aside. Again, it looks like we have progress in Russia-Ukraine, as I'll get into. Rubio's not directly involved in that. Again, it's Witkoff. Whenever Rubio's involved, peace becomes unattainable. But when Witkoff's involved, all of a sudden peace is back on the table. So get rid of this midget. He has big ears. He's weird to look at. He sweats way too much. He likes drinking water during State of the Union responses. Get rid of this guy. We don't need him. Send him back to Cuba. Send him back. He can do regime change. If he wants to do regime change in the Caribbean, just send him back to Cuba. He can do it in Cuba himself. Or send him to Venezuela if he's so gung-ho on it. So get rid of Marco Rubio. Get rid of Susie Wiles. I know RFK Jr. said a tweet defending her, but she's bad news, folks. We don't want her. She's not good for the administration. So get rid of Susie Wiles. She's an establishment whore who is gatekeeping the populist voices for Trump. So we need to get rid of her. And the other thing, probably the not the most important thing, but a very important thing, is keep Israel in line. We finally have a ceasefire in Gaza. Force Israel to uphold it. Israel's going to look for excuses to violate the ceasefire. And from Israel's perspective, you could understand why, for whatever reason, they want to get rid of Hamas, and Hamas is a threat to Israel. So you could understand why Israel would want to violate the ceasefire, because as of now, Hamas is still around. Now, in theory, according to this peace deal, Hamas will have to disarm. We'll see if that actually happens or not. But keep Israel honest. Keep them in line in the peace deal, and don't let them continue escalating with Iran. Don't let them. I mean, if Israel wants to go after Iran, that's on Israel to some degree. But we can't be involved. Because again, when you look at Trump's polling, a big reason it dipped in the summer was because Trump bombed Iran. And for most Americans, or at least certainly for the majority of young people, that looked to them like Trump was just doing the bidding of Israel. Because it's not clear how that really benefits the United States, because Iran is not a threat to the United States. They're not going to bomb Nebraska or Iowa. That's not going to happen. Okay, not going to happen. So keep Israel in line. We're the major superpower. Okay, they're our proxy state. Keep them in line. And the last thing is, and this is going to go to our second topic, is you got to end the Russia-Ukraine war. He campaigned on that throughout the 24 campaign. He said he'd get it done in a day. That hasn't happened, obviously. But get that war done. And luckily, according to new reports, it looks like we may be headed, actually sooner than you may think, to a resolution to that conflict. So according to a new report from Axios, it looks like the United States and Russia have been negotiating, it looks like in secret, because there's been no leaks up until now. They have been negotiating a 28-point plan under a similar structure of the Israel-Gaza peace deal to finally end this ridiculous war between Ukraine and Russia, and really NATO and Russia, or you could say Europe and or just the West and Russia. This big conflict that Russia has been winning, by the way, which is embarrassing for the United States and the West. But we don't have the details of the supposed peace plan. What we do know is that according to a Russian official who spoke to, I believe, both Axios and Politico, the Russians seem optimistic. They think this is not just some sort of pie-in-the-sky proposal from the Americans, but they feel like there's a real possibility of peace here. I think I'll play a clip from Politico, but they feel as though that the Russian side's really being heard here. Now, it looks like Ukraine hasn't been involved in these negotiations up until now, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. Or the Europeans. That's a good thing, because those people don't really care about peace. They want the war to continue because they like having Russia as a foil for them, if we're being honest. At least the Europeans. The Ukrainians a little bit different, in all fairness. I mean, Zelensky, I think, is a bad faith actor, but I think the people of Ukraine have suffered a lot, which is why we need this war to end. But Dasha Burns, who works for Politico, she's very pretty. It's too bad this is an audio podcast. You're not going to see her pretty face. But she was doing her podcast. Again, everyone has to have a podcast. She was doing her podcast talking about the new report, and I'm going to play it for you now to give you more context.
Axios reporting that there is a secret peace plan that has been pretty much there, hammered out between Russia and Steve Witkoff, the president's envoy on peace. Ukraine has not been involved in these talks, and it is only today it sounds like that they're going to start getting involved in this negotiation. That's a really big deal, Dasha. This felt like it was stalled. It felt like it was going nowhere. And suddenly, well, you've been talking to your sources last night. How close are we to actually something concrete happening here?
Yeah, I mean, this is remarkable. Just weeks ago, there was speculation of whether or not the president was going to get sick and tired of this and walk away altogether, because he made so much progress in so many other parts of the world in these peace negotiations. And this was just a nut he couldn't crack. Well, it's cracking. The dam is breaking. Whatever metaphor you want to use, suddenly there was a ton of movement here. I've been speaking to my sources. One senior White House official is telling me that they are expecting the beginning of the end of this conflict between Russia and Ukraine to come as soon as this week. At the latest, they're saying next week. That is the belief right now in the White House, is within the next 2 weeks. We won't necessarily have a peace deal signed, but we will have at least the framework of a peace deal and have both Russia and Ukraine, Putin and Zelensky on board here. Now, this source confirmed the Axios reporting that you just outlined, Jack, and said that right now Steve Witkoff is in talks with the Ukrainians and is trying to get them on board with this.
By the way, I love that the attitude from the administration is we don't give a shit what the Europeans think, or even frankly, to some degree, what the Ukrainians think. I love that because those people are hopeless. Okay, the Europeans, they suck. They want this war to continue. I think Zelensky wants the war to continue so he can continue getting, amazingly positive op-eds done about him. It also, the longer this war goes on, the longer he doesn't have to hold elections. I mean, this dude, all the democracy people, the people who love democracy, they love Zelensky too. And it's like, Zelensky's a dictator. He's refused to hold elections. Why? Because he's at war. If the United States was, if Donald Trump refused to hold elections, the left wouldn't care if the United States was at war or not. They'd be like, this dude's a dictator. He's refusing to hold elections. But as Zelensky does it all, everything's fine. It's great. Zelensky's wonderful. He can't hold elections. There's a war going on. Imagine if George W. Bush hadn't held elections in 2004 because we were at war. Now I get it. It's different. We weren't actually invaded. We were invading, and that's in the Iraq and Afghanistan situation. Although we were attacked directly on 9/11, and that was the pretext for those wars. But so it's a little bit different because obviously Ukraine is being invaded. They haven't invaded Russia. But the principle is still there. Like what? Because you're at war, you can't hold elections? It's a crock. The whole thing's ridiculous. And again, I want to make the point, going back to Marco Rubio, according to Dasha Burns, again, very pretty woman. I only say that just for context. No other reason. Again, this is an audio podcast, folks. I just want to give you the full context. I want you to be able to picture what's going on in this wonderful audio experience. She's very pretty. She points out that this is Witkoff. Witkoff is driving these new negotiations with the Russians. It's not Rubio. Because remember, folks, it looked like about a month ago or so that Trump was going to have another summit with Putin. But then Rubio got on the phone with, I think, Lavrov, which is his Russian counterpart. Then all of a sudden, the second summit got put off. Again, everywhere Marco Rubio goes, it turns to shit. Okay? Like, again, this guy, we need to get rid of Marco Rubio, folks. He sucks. I already talked. No more Marco Rubio rants for the rest of the week, folks. I promise. He's a gay neocon, but I won't talk about it anymore. I promise. I promise. He's such a fat. Anyway, so this is good news. And again, this goes on to my major points at the beginning of the podcast is, to the extent that we should be focused on foreign policy, it should be to end war so we can focus on the home front. That's it. So even though I was talking about we have to focus on domestic policy, to the extent we are focused on foreign policy, if it's ending wars, that's a positive. Because in theory, that means that the Trump administration has to actually follow through. But if you end wars, in theory, that means you can focus on us. And all that money we are sending to Ukraine can stop. All the weapons we're sending to the Ukraine, to the Europeans, can stop. And that would be a wonderful thing. And look, it would be good for the Ukrainians for this war to end. Again, they've suffered enough. They're not getting the territory back that they've lost. And Zelensky needs to hold elections. Okay, it's time. So this is a very positive development. We'll see what happens. I wanted to emphasize this point at the end of the podcast. So yeah, we'll see what happens. There should be more developments, I think, later in the week if Dasha Burns is to be believed. So I'll update you on the progress of ending this ridiculous, terrible war. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. Thanks for listening. Again, please subscribe, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever the hell you get your podcasts. If you are listening on YouTube, please also like and comment. It helps with the algorithm. I have a documentary in the works, which I think you folks will like, which will be available on YouTube, so all the more reason to subscribe. I'll see you back tomorrow, folks. Bye-bye.